just so that I can be certain, exactly where did we end? What were the last notes that we had?
It was hyper-polarization.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so we were talking about hyperpolarization. All right. Okay. You will probably, well, I'm thinking of this. Remember that from the reproduction, you will have to label the male and female reproductive systems, plus, the various things we talk about, what the two male hormones do, actually four. There are the two hormones of the pituitary gland of the brain. FSH and LH are in both males and females. Look at what FSH hormone stimulates. We isolated it. Look at what LH does. In the female, what do the two hormones of the uterus do? The two hormones produced, of the ovaries do. One would be the estrogens produced by the ovaries. They have an effect on the endometrium of the uterus. The other would be the progesterones produced by the ovaries. They too have an effect on the endometrium of the uterus. The two hormones of the pituitary, LH and FSH, know what they do in the female, know what they do in the male. Know that follicle-stimulating hormone is called that in both the male and in the female, even though the male doesn't have a follicle to stimulate. Okay, but it does. Just as the follicle-stimulating hormone stimulates an egg, it stimulates sperms in the male. All right, LH is in both the male and females too. But LH in the male is also called interstitial cell stimulating hormone, ICSH. What does it do? It stimulates the in-between interstitial cells to produce testosterone plus other androgens, other masculinizing hormones. No stuff like that. I mentioned you would have to identify male and female reproductive structures. We talked about embryonic development in chapter 47. We didn't go into details as to how frog embryos develop and bird embryos develop. Pretty much stick to what we talked about in lecture, those topics that we talked about in lecture. I also I asked you to look up the definition of the apical epidermal ridge and the zone of polarizing activity, and cell adhesion molecules, or CAMs.
The what? I'm sorry, say this again.
The zone of polarizing activity, or ZPA. The apical epidermal ridge, the AER. And the CAMs, cell adhesion molecules, that are part of the extracellular fluid, but yet they guide certain cells during migration. So read up on those. Follow your notes for the most part. You will see what we stress and what we didn't stress in terms of that big chapter on embryonic development. I gave you some additional definitions about characteristics of development. What do we mean by ontogeny, phylogeny, morphogenesis, growth, differentiation, those kinds of terms that I defined separately from everything else. For this chapter on the nervous system, okay, we will not get to the part where we will talk about the divisions of the nervous system. We'll have to do that after the exam. In looking at the divisions or the organization of the nervous system, the central nervous system versus peripheral, somatic, efferent, and afferent nervous system, sympathetic, parasympathetic. We aren't there yet. We're gonna pick up after the exam and get to the rest of chapter 48. But in chapter 48, we're mainly talking about nerve physiology, how a neuron basically produces an electrochemical impulse. All right, so that's what we're emphasizing in chapter 48. All right.